War. What is it good for? Some would say absolutely nothing, but in a cyberpunk world filled with conflict, it wouldn't hurt to have the biggest stick. So welcome to the Omnisec Gun Show. Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we're looking at everything you're going to need to give your military the upper hand, including a bonus right at the end, so stick around for that. In the past we've briefly touched on some military vehicles, including some aircraft and even some robots, but today we're starting with turrets, and we have a few different ones here to look at, starting off with the Vipers. Right, there's two Vipers here, and as you can see, some of them have custom heads. This is a normal thing for me. You guys know how it is by now. There's always an alternative option. In this case, you can see behind me, the one has a head and the other one uses an observer. There's different ways that you can do these things, so just keep that in mind. But here we have the first Viper, and we also have some transparent maps, as we've been doing a lot more recently. This one I actually made a logo for Omnisec. That is the corporation that is in charge of most of these military things, bar one. So yeah, I've actually made 3 of them. This one is on the top section of the block. There's one for the middle and there's one at the bottom, but I will show you guys that as we go along. So with a little flyby, you guys can really see what these look like, and it's not that difficult to recreate. But also remember, these are all available on the world download, so check the description for that and have a look for yourself. It is available on Java and Bedrock. Then the next one we have over here is called the Cobra, as it's got a little bit more of a Cobra shape to it. This one, again, with the Omnisec at the bottom of the block this time, and also with the custom head. And again, a pretty simple design. These turrets are not gigantic. They're not massive artillery guns. They're just turrets to keep bases secure, and maybe for some quick deployment in some cases. Then the next one we have here is called the Chimp, because it kind of looks like a little bit of a monkey, and it's a bit smaller than another one that we are going to be looking at in a bit. But this one, again, with the Omnisec and just those things there. This one actually has a light attached to it so that it can see a little bit better, but again, custom heads are not necessary all the time. You can get away with maybe putting some signs here, glow signs, to make it look like it has some lights, right? So that's pretty much the whole thing for turrets. Then moving on to drones, and here we have the Odin. Right, this one has a little bit more firepower than the other one, and I thought Odin was a pretty good name, seeing as it has one eye. Right, so we have the Omnisec logo. Again, these drones are a lot bigger than any of the ones we've looked at in the past. These are your combat drones, right? So it's got a big cannon and a little laser gun and everything as well. And then this one is called the Ra, which is another mythical being with just one eye, right? So this one's a little bit more for surveillance, but it does have some defensive capabilities as well. And again, Omnisec logo. So that's pretty much the turrets and the drones for today. Now let's move on to mechs, because these mechs are awesome and I love them. And first off, we have the Silverback. Right? Because if you look at that, come on, tell me that doesn't look like a gorilla, right? We built this one in a live stream, as with a few of the bigger vehicles, but this is a pretty big mech, right? The driver, the pilot, would be in the middle there. It's got a big gun on this side with an extra smaller gun below it, and it's got some massive feet with some Healy wheels as well, just to make sure that the mobility on this is as useful as possible. It also has a big claw arm on this side and the Omnisec logo yet again. Lots of little details here and there with player heads, and then also with, it might be a little bit expensive, but some lodestones for some sonic blasting cannons. So that is the Silverback. And then we move on to something that's not actually made by Omnisec. This is a Rebel mechanized infantry unit. This is improvised, cobbled together out of trash and scrap parts sort of robot. And this one does not have a driver. This is all remote piloted. It has these massive blast shields on its shoulders, and it has some mini rocket launchers up here with some smart rockets. And again, lots of head designs and things like that. And 2 smaller guns and 1 giant cannon up at the top. It also has some camo packs here with just humor me for a second, right? So we have some camo packs here that can hold some ammo and stuff for some of the foot soldiers that are accompanying this thing. So it basically helps them carry all of their ammo around as well. Lots of details on this one. It's got some tanks here at the back for fuel and all that. And just generally love the way that this one came out. Also, this one's called the Imp, by the way. I gave all of them names and I nearly forgot to say what this one was. Now, before we get on to the heavy vehicles, if you are finding any of this useful, I would really appreciate a like. It helps out a lot, and yeah, it'd just be nice. Thanks. Now, as we get into the heavy vehicles of this video, we start off with the Omnisec Crusader. This thing is a hover tank, which means that pretty much any terrain you could come across, this thing will be able to manage. It's loosely based off of the Militech Basilisk from Cyberpunk 2077, but obviously with a lot of modifications, as that doesn't translate all that well into Minecraft. It's got a lot of details, including some ventilation here, a big thruster at the back, there's some fuel tanks and things up at the top, and then the cannon up at the top here as well. This thing is a beast and will be able to wreck anyone's day with ease, as it can't get stuck, right? It hovers. Then moving on to the Omnisec Archangel. This one is also based off of a vehicle from Cyberpunk 2077 called the Militech Manticore. And again, this is a big boy. It's a chunky boy, but it is a personnel carrier, which means that, you know, soldiers will be sitting in here and then they can jump out and this thing can fly around and take them wherever they need, wherever there is conflict. So a few details on the inside there, and also lots of details around the outside. It's also got a big hangar style door at the back here, and it has its thrusters, and these things are also thrusters for, it's kind of like a VTOL, right? It lifts up straight and can fly in any direction. It's very versatile. So it has a couple of guns up at the front, and also some lights and all of that. But that is the Archangel. Now, before we get to the last one, I want you to picture something for me for a second, right? Imagine you took a Ford F-150 and you slapped a massive cannon on that. Well, that's what we have here with the Omnisec Scorpion. Now, don't mind the big bumper at the front, right? It's an intimidation tactic. This one is meant for urban warfare. This is to just ensure that you can get through the streets as easily as possible. Traffic is not going to be a problem with these big wheels or that big bull bar up at the front. In fact, pedestrians are not even going to be a problem for this thing. Right, I've made it so that the cannon actually points to the side, but if you look at the way this is set up, you can easily point this thing forward or backward or in any direction that you want. There's lots of details on this one as well. It has the fuel tanks here, it has some guns up at the front, some lights, some pipes and things like that. It also has a big truck hitch at the back with like the attachment for the wiring and everything if you want to put a trailer on the back of this thing, maybe something that brings in some foot troops. It can just bring this thing. It's just basically a big truck with a tank on top of it, right? There's also room up at the top here for a gunner to stand and actually operate the whole thing. And all in all, this thing is more for, you know, city riot control, city warfare, urban warfare, whereas that one probably do very well in the wilderness, in a desert, where it doesn't need to worry about terrain all that much. So that is the Omnisec Scorpion. And now, finally, as promised, our little secret bonus item for today. Even in current times, most battles these days don't actually take place on the battlefield anymore. It actually takes place in cyberspace. And so the next one, you know, it's in the name, Cyberpunk, cyberspace. It's a giant server room. Because, yeah, in the future, and like I said, even today's warfare, a lot of it takes place in, like, cyberspace. So the strongest militaries these days, and also in the future, will be the ones that actually have the strongest cybersecurity division. And I've just made a bunch of server stacks here, just as an example. We got a nice control center over here for all of it, and you can basically put like a net runner or a hacker or whatever in that chair, and he can do his thing. But ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it for today. Which one was your favorite? And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the video on screen next for some extra military stuff. Have a fantastic day, and see ya.